are you?
How's it in Boston, Bakes? Is it hot? Super hot there?
83 is not bad.
Not
I don't
bad,
think.
yeah.
I don't think triple digits. That's where it gets dicey.
Yeah, it's been hot in the Bay Area except for where I am in Tiburon, which is always in the mid 70s
Very nice.
in the summertime. Anyway, all right, let's get this show on the road. Welcome to Wall Street Beats, everybody. I'm Steve Lamar, joined today by our technicals and momentum pro, Kevin Bakes Baker, and our comms and retail and sometimes tech pro, Berna Barchet. Good morning, guys. We got 5 days in a row of strikes on Iran. I guess as long as the S&P remains in a range between 73 and 75, this can continue for longer. And then we got some news on PayPal. Stripe wants PayPal. Berna, was that you or Ben? Who had who brought that idea about buying PayPal when it was down and out a few
That
months
was
ago?
Ben's idea, and Robert talked about it a few weeks ago also. Extremely good timing for both of them.
I'll
I have some
say.
thoughts. Yeah. But I have some thoughts here. It's definitely you want me to jump in on it?
Yeah, why don't you jump in on PayPal,
Yeah.
because everybody, that's the stock du jour this
Okay.
morning.
So the offers from Stripe and from Advent. Advent is a large private equity company that's coming in for the financing because this is a big deal. I think 53 billion at the current quote. Um, but I just don't think there's any chance in hell that this stock trades at this price. I think we're going to see, the analogy for me would be this looks like a Warner Brothers, you know, Paramount Netflix situation brewing. The first bid will not be the bid that this company sells at. The risk here would be that nobody comes in and somehow it doesn't sell, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. So there are a few reasons that I don't think that this is the last and final. One is I think this is a strategic asset to somebody else, and it's
Yep.
worth a lot of strategic value to a number of buyers, which could include banks, it could include tech companies, it could include other payments players. So that's thing one. Thing two is valuation. This bid at 60.50 is 11.4 times the 531 consensus earnings estimates that the company has. It's only a 25 to 30% premium, but it's important to look at a 3-year chart of the stock. It's only traded at or below this price for like 85% of the time. I mean, below it for like 15% of the time. 85% of the time it's been higher. So I don't understand how a board is going to say, okay, let's sell at the 3-year low when we haven't even had a giant earnings blow up. There's no liquidity issue. There's no need to sell. There's just because someone comes along and says we're going to buy the company, it doesn't mean that to sell it, undersell it. And then the final thing is, part of the story here that Ben and Robert came up with was that you had this turnaround CEO. And the CEO, if you go to the compensation package that he has, he's got a bunch of performance linked stock units, these is incentive
Yep.
compensation. And most of it hits at 100, the rest of it hits at 125. So at I think $125, this guy makes $126 million. At 100, I forgot what he makes, but also tens of millions of dollars, less than the 126, but up there. I think it was maybe like 60% at 140% at 125. I'd have to go back and look. But the bottom line is this guy, and he hasn't been there that long, but his giant payout is at 100 and 125. So he's going to sell for 60. This guy is activated into shop around mode. So, who are they shopping to? I mean, our chat was lit this morning and it was talking about JP Morgan, highly, high market, highly capitalized company, large market cap, has some excess cash. Charlie points out that in his opinion, they have a overpriced stock that they can use for currency. I have no opinion on the stock one way or another, but Charlie thinks it's very full. And Jamie Dimon's been out there saying that, they're looking to bulk up in the payment space. And then on top of that, you got to think, Jamie Dimon's getting towards the end of his run as CEO. And, this would be one big transformative thing. And, we think about JP Morgan, we shorten it. It's JP Morgan Chase, and JP Morgan, it's the sexy piece of it is JP Morgan, the investment banking, the sales and trading operation, but it is the largest bank, consumer bank in the country. And for a consumer bank to have PayPal and Venmo, is a very attractive proposition. So, that makes sense. I mean, antitrust is really complicated, but, this asset could make sense for a lot of tech companies, like including Amazon. Now, I don't know if they would tread in there, but, the whole bear case on PayPal was, oh, look at everybody linking their Apple Pay and their Google Pay wallets. Like nobody talks about their Amazon wallet, right? So I see how this could be strategic to Amazon personally, as well. And I don't know if they'd want to get into the quagmire of, anything that Amazon looks at is going to be scrutinized, but they'd be crazy not to take a look. So buckle up. I think there's going to be a lot of
But
action here.
but
And I
Berna,
think it's
what
a buy today. I think it's a buy today because um it was undervalued. It's up whatever it's up like 20%. This isn't a big premium. Um but I think that it could go substantially higher, and certainly the CEO is looking for 100.
what was it about the fundamentals that had the stock down here in the first place? So it's like something
Yeah,
would suggest that something's broken.
yeah, but it's kind of the breaking is coming. It hasn't broken yet. It's sort of this idea that they're getting disintermediated by Apple Pay and Google Pay, and that there's just, an explosion in competition. Oh, and the other thought I was going to have, I forgot the other thought with Amazon. Remember the origin story of PayPal was that it was founded by eBay to be, a checkout mechanism for them. So
Right.
there still is a huge opportunity here in e-commerce, which is another reason that Amazon makes sense as although I think JP Morgan, is the one. And if you get a really large cap strategic, be it JP Morgan, be it Amazon, I think the biggest risk here is that like a Stripe and Advent couldn't keep up in a bidding war, and
For sure.
because either of those would swamp a a private equity. Now, if you had both of them get involved or some other player that I haven't named, that could be, any other bank. Why wouldn't Bank of America or Wells Fargo or anyone else look at this if JP Morgan's, it's just JP Morgan as Jamie Dimon has said he's interested in payments. As Charlie said, it's a very full stock. So, that is the obvious one, but really any bank could be on the buyer bidding list here.
Yeah. Banks, what do you think about what do you think about our comments on the chart?
I'm struck by, when most deals get consummated, and maybe this is just a bias that I have. I haven't gone back and looked at this empirically, but they tend to say, okay, what's the 52-week high, and then let's tag 10-15% onto that, and that's $80. So 80, I think, is sort of is table stakes, and then you then put a premium on top of that. So you know I think this is a first salvo, and I think $80 is the 52-week high that they're going to be shooting for, and then add some on top of that.
Berna, is there ever a way to get the CEO sort of made whole if he's taken a deal or forced to take a deal less than he really wants to?
That's a question for an employment lawyer.
Okay. I would assume he's got some sort of package if they take a deal with without his recommendation and he's sent out the door, he's probably got some sort of exit package, but the big
Yeah,
money's the
can
big
you hear
money's
me?
at
I
the
think
higher price.
Yeah, the big money, I don't know if I think I might have broken up for a second. As I said, like that's a question for an employment lawyer, and I'm not sure, you know, what happens. Yeah, I think 100 is a stretch from here. Not impossible. It all depends on, because 100 would be like, whatever, like 18 times or whatever it would be. Like, I think 75, 80, makes a lot of sense evaluation wise. You have that, but you have that bogey of his employment package. And I think how high it goes, I mean, the stock traded over 100. I can't pull up the chart right now myself, but it spent substantial time over that price. So,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly. So, you know, yeah, I think that, even if nobody else shows up right now, and they somehow managed to reject this stock, you now have like a new floor of around here.
Yeah.
And and the top is 125, because the guy would sell the whole thing there.
And then
So,
how long does this typically take, Berna? Could this go for a week or two, or are we talking a couple months? How long does it?
oh,
How
till
long
we hear from
generally would it
someone
take to get
else.
other people in kind of coming to the table here?
I think it'll be pretty soon. I think it'll be, bankers are calling right now.
Sure.
And
They got fresh meat on the deck.
and also remember, the CEO is also going to be calling the banker. So, I would expect something else to materialize fairly
Soon.
soon, weeks,
Yeah.
weeks.
Okay. All right. All right. You want to transition over to Stitch Fix? I think that was something on your
Oh,
radar recently you wanted to talk about.
yeah, there were two others that I just wanted to mention quickly. One was Stitch Fix. I talked about on here a couple weeks ago, and I bought a little bit more last week. You know, this is, I'm not going to go through the whole story. It's, it's not, it's, the whole thing is on the website, in the archives. But um, suffice to say that this is a company that used to be really overvalued with inflated estimations of what the TAM could be. The stock ran up. The stock, I think, the first run, I think it got to around 60. The second run, I think it was probably over 100. It was wildly overvalued. Now we have a stock that's got a few hundred million EV, that's under $4, and people have a much more realistic view of what this company can do. It's pretty much gone sideways for the last, 5 years or 6 years, and but it's showing signs of stabilization. Revenue has been up between mid and high single digits for the last 3 quarters. EBITDA is going in the right direction, and they are going to add clients, paying customers, quarter over quarter for the first time in many, many years. So things are moving in the right direction. I just wanted to point out that there was an article in Fortune that talked about the new CEO, and that's like an article anyone could look up. And this guy Matt Bear, who came in with experience from Macy's and Walmart, they talked about how it was like how this company was founded as a tech company, but it went off the rails as a retailer because they weren't thinking about merchandising and sort of retail 101. And I just thought it was, I don't often recommend, articles in the press, but I felt like this was one that did a good job sort of summarizing where this company has been, why it's important that the new guy came in, and what he's doing that I think, it's starting to show green shoots. And it's it's about 6.5 times the EBITDA. It's at 25% of sales. It's priced like it's going to go out of business, but it's free cash flow positive and EBITDA positive, with the revenue metrics starting to go the right way. Now, is it going to start growing 30% a year again? I don't think so, but I just think that it's priced like it's going away and going bankrupt, and the financials are improving, not deteriorating. And at this valuation, it points to deteriorating. So, I'm making a bet on the CEO. I'm making a bet on his strategy. I'm making a bet on what are early green shoots, and saying I'm paying nothing for it. Like, people, it reminds me real when it was like $1, $2. Now that had a
Yeah.
more explosive end market, but I see this as like my downside is that, it goes sideways and it's plus or minus 20%, and, I'm marking my personal P&L, but, just one direction or another, and it just sort of treads water. I'm okay with that, because if this actually gets going and can maintain this kind of mid to high single digit growth that it's going to put up this year for the next few years, the stock is going to double.
Nowhere
So,
near you.
it's like it's the reward to risk. There's a lot of potential reward here. The risk, I think, is pretty minimal. Like, what would change my mind would be if the metro starting going the other way, but they're not. So, just wanted to
Is this
point out
still a
that
heavily
article.
shorted name, Berna?
Not super
This-
shorted anymore, no. It
No.
was at the
Okay.
top. I was shorted like years
Yeah, I
ago
remember.
because it was stupid, but now there's a realistic outlook. And then the other one that I wanted to point out, I don't actually short anymore, but I have a legacy short in this that I never covered because I think the company's going nowhere. And I've talked about it before a long time ago, much higher, and I never covered my short, is Sweet Green. And this is the premium, 15 to $20, you know, fast casual salad company.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, the bottom line is, I think we've all heard about the problems at Taco Bell and this, I've heard, this parasitic, organism that's gotten into the food supply chain on greens, like, primarily lettuce, cilantro, basil, other greens. And, the internet is awash in memes that say, you know, you know, thank goodness, like, I'm safe with my Diet Coke and my chocolate. Like, I'm not gonna have a salad, right? And, this I mean, this company could comp, I can't, double digit negative for the next few weeks. Like, why would you go pay to have a salad prepared? And I mean, they may actually be okay because a lot of they're not in the industrialized supply chain, and they're buying local, and it's a high quality food supply chain for them versus your normal fast casual. But no one's thinking about that right now. They're just not having salads. And the stock was down 15% yesterday as this news. But this is a company that was supposed to do $2 million in EBITDA this year. This is gonna, 2 bad weeks, 3 bad weeks is enough to turn this company EBITDA negative on the year. I didn't like it before, but I certainly don't. This is going to, even if you
This sounds like a
believe they
zero.
were, I
This
mean,
sounds
you know, as a private company, it wouldn't have been a zero, right? Like, it's a great concept for Midtown Manhattan, and downtown Boston, and
right.
the right, I don't know the neighborhoods in San Francisco to say, is by the Embarcadero Center in San Francisco. It's got its spots, but it's not it's never going to be a 500 store chain that's profitable because it's too expensive. And the other issue is, and I think I talked about this here once, is that the quality has gone down a lot over time. So it's expensive, the quality's going down, and now you're afraid you're like playing Russian roulette with getting a parasite. So no one's eating salad right now. So,
Right.
Other than them, it's
That's
like
I think that this outbreak is going to take the stock to new lows. That's my guess. By the time we see the
Bakes,
reports and what it
what does the chart tell you?
it looked like it was trying to base, and the bad news was he was baked in. This last earnings report gave the stock a lift. And maybe that's just short covering. I don't know. I don't have the short right in front of me, but now it looks like it wants to succumb under the tuna day again. And yeah, I'm with you. The next earnings report, all they're going to be talking about is parasites. So that's not going to be a fun call. So
What
I
is
think
the market cap of this thing? Sorry,
I'm
making you
looking
put your glasses on. I can't see.
842.
Oh
I don't
wow.
know off the top of my head.
842
842.
Berna.
Still a lot of
So
cap. And if you
yeah,
look at it on a per store basis, it's pretty high too.
that's a lot of cap for sure for that. All right, so we're staying away from sweet creams. You're staying short and getting long PayPal and staying long Stitch Fix. Actually, I heard you adding a little. So, Bakes,
Yeah,
what
I
are you
added
looking at
last
this
week.
morning?
You want to talk about five or no, Berna?
You want to talk about Five Below?
No, I'll save it for next time. It's nothing. I'll
Okay.
save it for next time because we're running along.
Yep.
Okay.
Nothing that
The only
time
thing,
sensitive.
yeah, what I have is I basically I've gotten out of taken some profits, taken some losses, and the market is telling me to be in the DMZ, which is where I am right now. I've got five names, five ETFs. I'm 44% in cash, and I'm going through my 5,400 ETFs to find five to add to my five, so I have the 10 best. I'm 2,000. I'm through 2,000. Frankly, haven't found anything. There's a lot of just equivocal charts that I see out there where I don't see a definitive action point. The exception being soybean, SOYB, Tucrium Soybean Fund, and they buy the commodities via the futures, and this looks like it wants to break out. So I have not bought it yet, but stay tuned. If soybean breaks out and I buy it, I'll tell you that. And I've got 3,400 more charts I'm going to go through hopefully today and report next week on what I find for fresh ideas.
How about the we last we talked? Bitcoin was hot. I should say short Bitcoin was hot. It was starting to lose
Yeah,
steam quick, and now it looks like it's trying to find a base here.
yeah. The low was 58,000 for Bitcoin itself, and that this is the grayscale Bitcoin Trust. The ETFs have started to bring in a trickle of money. Sailors sold some Bitcoin out of strategy, and it looks like it wants to form a base, and it could, and it could rally. I just want to be short because if we ever get to a real break of 58,000, and people say Bitcoin is BS, and they just get out of this in anger, then I think the short is going to work really, really well. Right now, I'm down about 4%, so I'm not. There are no victory
Tolerable.
laps here, but
Yeah.
Bitcoin has bounced from 58 to 65,000, and we'll see how it acts. I personally think it's lackluster. I'm not dazzled by the volume. I'm not dazzled by MicroStrategy here. You know, eh, but I haven't. I will declare I'll declare defeat when I'm down 15%, and I'll
Yep.
declare victory when we start seeing new lows in strategy, grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and Bitcoin itself. Because I think when that happens, people are going to, there's nothing else they can say. It doesn't go up in wars. It doesn't go up in inflation. It doesn't go up in money printing. It doesn't go up in COVID. It's just we're done.
Yeah.
If that happens, then the ETF starts selling, and the brokers that got their clients into it, are sick of talking about it on their quarterly reviews. I think so. I'm really watching the ETF outflows, and right now they're not too dramatic at this point in time, but we'll see.
Okay. And lastly, for me, Bakes, could you pull up SMH? That thing's been a roller coaster for the past kind of week to 10 days.
SMH.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think of the chart. Just looks like it's trying to find a base here.
I don't like that the volume expands on the down days. That's what my eye is drawn to here. It's nothing catastrophic, but the fact that when there's excuses, people find reasons to sell, and the volume is expanding on the down days. So that implies distribution. That implies weaker hands. We had the SK Hynix deal that apparently some people are calling mark to top. So we'll see how this goes. Can Nvidia do anything to that's the biggest component? Can they dazzle? Don't think so, but so
Yeah.
I'm watching. I want to see the volume turn around on SMH, and right now it's going the wrong way.
Yeah, and we had ASML this morning, and their numbers look fantastic, but the stock, I guess it was priced in. The stock looked a little soft after a
Yeah.
bounce. Oh, it's back up now. Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah. But it's tough to have these price increases hold for the next 2 years and compound. So we'll again, it feels toppy to me.
okay,
I'm not shorting it, but I'm sure as heck not buying it.
I'm not buying it up here. Got it. All right. Anything else you guys want to cover before we shut it down?
Rock and roll.
Right on time. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us on wallstreetbeats.com. Have a great day. We will be back here tomorrow.
Thank you all.
Careful
Thank
in
you,
that
John.
heat in New York.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.